Madhuri, can you hear me?
Hello, Neeraj.
Hey, Madhuri.
Hello. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Cloudleaf Conversations, a podcast where we explore the key drivers of digital transformation and the evolving role of AI in reshaping industries. I'm your host, Madhuri Desu, and today we are diving into contract intelligence and the future of AI with an incredible guest, Neeraj Itan. Neeraj is a seasoned expert in contract intelligence with over a decade of experience in implementing complex contract lifecycle management solutions. With deep expertise in contracts, he has helped global organizations streamline their contracting processes using AI driven insights. Specializing in large scale CLM integrations, Neeraj leverages advanced technologies to extract key contract data and optimize workflows. His work has led to successful enterprise implementations across various industries, transforming how businesses manage their contracts with automation and intelligence. Thank you, Neeraj, for joining us today to share your thoughts and deep dive into this important conversation.
Thank you, Madhuri. Thank you. I'm happy to be here again. Very, very excited to have these discussions and again, learn from it, I would say. Yeah.
Great. So before we deep dive into agentic AI, which is the happening word, which is the hype of the today's market, could you share a brief about what contract management is all about and what is its importance within the revenue lifecycle management?
Absolutely, Madhuri. I think a very, very relevant question here. So contract management, as I see, Madhuri, are like a set of processes which govern the creation, review, negotiation,
Mhm.
execution, and finally the storing of the contracts, right? The goal of the contract management solution generally is to ensure compliance, minimize the risk for the businesses, and maximize the revenue opportunities, right? Coming to the RLM, the revenue lifecycle management, right? Contract management is a very important function for RLM, right? So think about it, right? Any enterprise when doing a business, whether they are doing a buying or whether they are doing a selling, right? And any business would do either a buying or a selling, right? They cannot do their transaction without a contract. Okay.
Yes.
So again, just taking it from there, uh, in my view, and again, that is what I have always seen, is that the speed with which you can sell your products or you can actually buy something
Hmm.
is directly dependent on the speed with which you can create the contracts.
That's
Okay.
right.
So that actually drives the deal velocity, right? And then the other part is everything about that deal, as in what is going to happen in that deal, what are the deliverables, what are the obligations, right? And then what will happen in special situations, right? In case of pandemic, right?
Mhm.
Everybody went back to their contracts to see what they have written in force majeure clause, right? So everything that happens in the deal is governed by contract, right? So I would just put it at that, contracts are the lifeblood of any sale or procurement deals.
That's right. And anything that goes overlooked, it will have a very significant revenue impact as well, because the
Absolutely.
contract terms, the terms have been agreed, legal terms, contractual terms, everything has been agreed. And if if both sides, from a buyer and seller, if they are not looking through that, it will have a significant cost associated to it.
Absolutely, Madhuri. You're absolutely correct.
Right.
Yeah.
So now that we have a good understanding of, like, we touched upon contract management, let's dive into how, as you just mentioned, it is a lifeblood blood line for everything that we are selling, we are buying, and so on. With digital transformation, can you touch base on how contract management has evolved with digital transformation?
Yeah, absolutely, Madhuri. Again, again, a great question takes me back in time, if you ask me. So again, going back in time, you would see that the contract management has come a long way. Okay,
Mhm.
we were having physical files, manual redlining, everything, right? Currently, we have moved to a place where we have CLM platforms which are cloud based, which
Mhm.
offer various features like version control, e-signature, and we could automate most of the workflows, right? So we could write rules, we could actually have a bespoke solutions for businesses as per their requirement and all those things, right? So I would say today's contract management is a living breathing system with advanced tracking and reporting capabilities.
And now, getting into the AI part, the crux of our conversation, what role does AI currently play in contract lifecycle management, and what gaps do you think are still existing?
Yeah. I think this is a good segue into AI, right? We now actually dive into our main topic of
Yes.
discussion, right? So as with any other system, Madhuri, right? The implementation of AI right now is very reactive and rule based, even
Mm.
for contract management, right? So we are still, the AI is such that we have to create rules. We will need to invoke the AI. It is intelligent, but it is still not there. Okay, so we
Mm.
have to write rules. We would set up the business processes, and then we would invoke AI to actually do transaction, maybe I would say. Okay, and then currently the two main use cases that we have been dealing with a lot is contract metadata extraction and the
Mm-hmm.
co-pilots, which again have very recently come because of the
Mm-hmm.
Gen AI availability and everything. So you would generally see that any business that they want to start with AI in contract management, they would generally start with contract metadata extraction or very recently the co-pilots.
Great. So, well, again, Copilot, contract data extraction, all of this is has boomed into our lives. Like, last 2 to 3 years, that we have been having a lot many conversations about AI in real world, on, like, as a business second skin for the business processes and workflows to complete. But now, with agentic AI, what is the difference between agentic AI and traditional AI? I would say it is still traditional, because Gen AI, predictive AI, there is a lot many words that are floating around. Can you touch base on these differences for my audience?
Absolutely, Madhuri. I think, and again, I would set the record straight that this is the question of the town these days. Okay, so the question that you're asking, that what is an agentic AI, and again, this has been changing so frequently. I would say, because
Hmm.
sometime back people were asking what is Gen AI, right?
Correct.
And now people have forgotten about it, and now people are asking what is agentic AI, right?
Yes.
So this is such a crucial question, and everybody wants an answer or understanding of this, right? That again, to actually back it up or to actually give some clarity, even
Mm-hmm.
the Anthropic AI Labs, right, recently released a paper like a couple
Mm-hmm.
of months back, in
Okay.
which specifically they wanted to define what is an agentic AI, because
Okay.
again, people have been using this term very loosely. So they attempted to define what is an agentic AI. They actually have this very good paper wherein it says or talks about the differences between an agent and a workflow. Okay,
Oh,
and
okay.
and again, there's a good reason why they had to do this, because agents and workflows are very similar. Okay, they
Mm,
can both use LLMs into their processing, right? But the thing that actually is different in case of agents is that agents are more autonomous. Okay? They can dynamically direct their own processes, the tool usage, and everything, right? So basically, the control of the flow of the operation is actually governed by the agents. So I think
mm,
that is the major difference, right? So with cases of with cases of the earlier AIs, we had to have a lot of help given to the AI. But after the advent of agentic AI, it will be more autonomous. Okay,
mm.
and I think it is good time. Maybe I have also created some material. If you don't mind, maybe I can share that and we can
Sure.
actually talk about it, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
Let me just see how to share my screen. Give me a second, okay?
Yeah,
I think it should be somewhere here. Yep. Very new for me, Madhuri. So give me a second, okay?
sure. No worries.
Okay. Let me know when you're able to see my screen, Madhuri.
Yes, I can.
Okay, nice. So starting with this screen, okay?
Neeraj, can you go to the presentation mode, please?
Okay, sure. I can do that. Let me know when this is good for you.
Mm-hmm.
Are you still able to see my screen?
Yeah, I can see your screen, but it's still in the document mode,
Oh,
but not in the presentation mode.
okay. Let me actually do one thing instead of, because this is always a problem. Okay, let me actually increase the size a little bit.
Yes, this is perfect.
Is good? Okay. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So again, this is something that I have taken from the paper, Madhuri, that I was just talking about, right? So
Mm,
Anthropic attempted to define the agent, right?
mm,
What they showed in this flow, as you can see, right, is that as per them, the human will interact with the LLM. And again, LLM is a large language model. We use it in our daily life. Many of us know it. Many of us don't know it. For example,
mm,
ChatGPT, right? There is an LLM in the backend for ChatGPT, right? So a human will always interact with an LLM, right? And then LLM will decide or will actually take control from there and would interact with any of the environment. It would do all the action. It will take feedback from that environment, and then
mm-hmm,
it will take all the decisions based on it, right? And
mm,
it will decide when to stop, right?
mm.
So if you see this figure, the red box that you see is an agent. Okay.
Okay, got
So the
it.
main part of an agent is an LLM, and then it has many tools to interact with the environment, and then
Mm-hmm,
it has the autonomy to start work, to stop work, everything.
mm.
Yeah, does it make sense?
Okay. Yes.
Yeah. Moving on to again on the similar lines, right? I wanted to explain it to the audience of how we have evolved, right? Where were we, and then how did we come to a point here, right? So as in again, I would start with where were we, right? So that was the traditional AI, right? Like
Mm-hmm,
I think it came when the buzz was started on AI like couple of years back, right?
mm-hmm.
Where the systems were rule based, right? They were designed to perform a very specific task using structured data, right?
Correct.
So you had to feed a lot of data to them so that they can be trained, and then they used to take decisions based on it, right? And then again, it was very predefined logic, right? And again, they could only do the stuff based on what they have learned from the patterns of
Yes.
the data. Okay.
Yes.
And typical use cases of this, Madhuri, were clause extraction tools, right? So we used to, again, these are actually use cases related to contract management as such.
Mm-hmm.
So we could actually extract some clauses, right? We what we used to do, I remember that we used to take one clause. For example, like if an enterprise customer came in, we used to take one clause. We used to train the AI based on that clause. The AI will understand the nuances of that language, and then would be enough for it to actually extract that clause the next time when it sees it. Okay,
Oh, okay.
that was very specific there, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And similarly, we also had some functionality on the obligation. Very, very similar principle. We used to train the AI that, okay, if you see this language, then mark it as an obligation. Okay.
Mm.
Again, a lot of training was required. We used to give many, many different variations of the language to the AI so that yeah, it can understand, right? So this is the traditional AI where we were.
Mm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
uh, where are we now? Okay, so now we have moved to generational AI. Okay, that is also called Gen AI, right?
Yes.
Now the basic difference between the traditional AI and the Gen AI is that Gen AI not just understands or recognize the pattern, but after understanding that pattern, it can even generate data based on
Mm-hmm.
that pattern. Okay,
Okay.
so it is now
Mm-hmm.
going a step ahead, a
Mm-hmm.
step further, right? It is not just understanding, but it is understanding and then creating, or it can actually create data for you, right?
Okay.
So as you can see here now, in context to CLM, right? It could actually create content like text, summaries, and even suggest by learning from large amount of data, right? Which was
Mm.
not earlier available, right? And again, it just does not follow the rules now, right?
Mm.
It can actually generate responses and draft documents based on the context because it has understood how the data was created. It actually understands the context, and then
Mm-hmm.
it can create. So for example, right now you can go to Gen AI, and again you can do that experiment. You can go to ChatGPT and you can tell them that, okay, can you generate a clause for me, maybe a termination clause for me, right?
Mm.
It would generally be able to do that language for you. You can even, and again, that all depends on the prompt that you're giving to it, right? So
Right.
you can actually add more information to it of what kind of termination clause you're looking for and all
Mm-hmm.
these things, and it will be able to generate that data for you. Okay. Some of the use cases in contract management related to Gen AI, again, I have listed down. One is a contract summary generator. Again, have been used in many of the co-pilots here. That is, it will actually see the contract. It will then summarize the contract for you, and then it will give you the gist of the contract, right?
Mm.
And again, this is very much applicable to contracts as well as, I have seen people using it for many other use cases, such as, reviewing uh, 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 the quarterly or the yearly company reports, right?
Mm.
You see,
Mm.
if you see, right, those reports are like very, very large with many numbers and everything, right? So I have seen people using the Gen AI tools to actually summarize that, to understand, what is actually important for them, right? The other thing, again, I have seen the other use case is clause drafting assistant. I
Mm-hmm.
have seen that we can even use the Gen AI to actually suggest us the alternative language, right? So it
Mm.
can first of all suggest you that, okay, this language may not be appropriate for what we are using, or could be like very risky, and then Gen AI could actually suggest you what could be an appropriate or a less risky language, right?
Okay.
That is another use case that we have seen on the field for generational AI, right? And again, just to take a pause here. So this is where we are right now. This is what we
Mm-hmm.
or any of the systems are implementing right now, right? Now, let us try to think what the future could be, and the future is the agentic AI. Okay, so again, what is in AI? As I defined earlier, right? It's an AI system that can autonomously plan, make decisions, and take actions, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we just have to let it know what is the goal that we want to achieve, right? And then it will be smart enough to think by itself what. And again, we have to just explain the goal, explain the underlying tools as well, that these are the
Mm.
tools available for you to use. And
Mm-hmm.
then it will be smart enough to take decisions by itself, use the appropriate tool as per the documentation and everything that we have supplied to it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. They can actually, the other thing is, again, it is not just one-to-one transaction now. Okay, what we are going to do, we are going to actually now go in, and we can actually do multiple steps, as in it is not just like one-on-one step that we give it a prompt and then it will give you an answer. Okay,
Mm.
it is like it can actually do multiple steps. It can actually call multiple agents. So there could be like one agent, like a team, as you can see,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
The team leader, and then the leader can actually call on different team members based on their expertise, right?
Mm.
Uh, Again, I see the future use cases of agentic AI would be there. One of the use cases would be AI contract reviewer agent, right? So you would be able to actually give everything, right from contract check or for compliance with company policies, highlighting the
Mm-hmm.
risk or suggesting the red line. All of this can be done by a single agent, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then one other use case which is very interesting, and I think that is where we will go, is an end-to-end contract assistance. Okay, so
Oh.
basically it's not like one part of the job, but it will do
Mm-hmm.
an entire thing. It will actually come into play whenever you need it. You just go to it, or maybe it can even autonomously do many things. And it can only, as in, if you see that there are some of the risky, some of the non-risky contracts or less risky contracts, then for example maybe an NDA, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think agentic AI would be in a position where they can actually create a contract, they can actually send it for execution, and whenever they think that it is actually deviating from the standard process, and that is where they can actually call or transfer the flow to the legal team.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is just a summary of what I'm thinking, what we will be able to do. But yes,
Mm-hmm.
open to discuss more on this.
Yeah. So one another word that I've been hearing these days is predictive AI. So now
Mhm.
Gen AI, predictive AI, and so how does that relate to agentic AI? Is it similar or is it totally different terminal, different structure altogether?
Yeah, no, I think predictive is the nature of the AI. Okay, so
Okay,
you would
got
be able to, as you would have seen, right?
it. Mm-hmm.
Again, let me start from the basics, right? So when you work with an LLM, right? For example, when you work with ChatGPT, right? It is actually predicting what is going to be the next word, right? That is where the
Mm,
LLM starts, right?
got
So in a similar way, this prediction goes to that level that it is able to predict and then answer your questions. Okay, or
okay,
maybe
got it.
predict that what is the accuracy of this contract, what are the risky terms in the contract and everything.
Mhm. Oh, okay. So it is still part of your generative AI.
Yep.
Like it takes the it reads the words, it reads the language and predicts. But again, how would we uh, how would we know that those predictions are always going to be the same every time it is going to come, right? Like,
Yeah.
because generative AI, when we say, hey, refresh, do it again, it could come up with a totally different response altogether.
Yep, absolutely, you're right. And again, this is like baffling, right?
Mm-hmm.
First of all, when we go and build an intelligence in the system, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think what you are saying is something that is going to always happen. Okay, so for
Okay.
example, if you go and talk to a human,
Mm-hmm.
generally, and again, take an experiment. Okay, suppose if there's a kid or somebody, right? You give that kid or that person a topic and tell them to write maybe 5 or 10 lines about something. Okay, and then once you maybe after a week or so or a month or so, you go and again tell them the point. If they've forgotten about it, they would generally write something else.
Exactly.
Yeah. And again, similarly, here also, when we have an intelligent system, it is not doing a job based on something that has been hard coded into the system, right? It is a
Correct.
continuously thinking machine, right? So,
Mm.
what it would do, it would actually, once you actually give it an instruction, it will take that context and give you the answer. Okay.
Mm.
Now, there are good chances if you always give a similar context, you will get the same answer. But generally we are not very good at giving the context. Okay, and again,
Mm.
this is a good point to discuss, Madhuri. Okay, so generally when we live with humans, right, when we are talking to each other, and when you are sitting with me in my maybe in my house, or we are sitting in a restaurant for a coffee or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
You are already aware about the context around us, right? Of
Yes.
where are we, what are we doing, all those things, right?
Mm.
So when I'm talking to you, I will generally not give you any context, right?
Correct.
And that is how we are actually hardwired, okay, as humans, right?
Mm.
So again, that also becomes very important, that when we deal with the AI or the agents itself, right? It is
Mm-hmm.
very important that we provide them context, which we are not very good at. Okay.
Mm.
So basically, when you're asking for something from an AI, I think you should provide them exactly what you need, why you need it, what is the situation you are in, and then you would see that generally the answers or the predictions that are coming are more or less similar.
Mm.
Yeah.
Context, that's a
Yeah.
keyword then.
Yes.
Context
Context
is
is the keyword. Yep.
definitely needed. And I think that goes for everything. Even when we have these agentic AI agents coming in, agents should know what is the context, why we are doing it, what are, the it's an NDA or is it a niche contract or whatever it is. So unless we give that uh, a special context or the criteria based off of which this agent should run, it will give a generic answer which might not be correct
Yep.
always.
Yep. Yep. You're right.
Makes
Spot on.
total sense.
Yeah.
Thanks for that information,
No problem.
Neeraj. So now that we have the differences, we know what these differences are between traditional versus agentic and how we have transformed. Let's get into the context of contract management. So, how do you define agentic AI within the context of contract management?
Okay. So the context is the word now, right?
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah. So again, Madhuri, what I'm seeing or what I'm thinking, okay, I see contract managements or any other system in the future would be a system which will have a team of agents, right?
Hmm.
And again, this, we would be able to design that system or the team or the structure of the team, as I put it, right?
Hmm.
And again, we can define what are the complex tasks that particular agent would do, right? So for example, we could have a team of agents which is then drafting a contract, responding to a query, or sending contract for execution, right?
Hmm.
And then most of the times, okay, or as per the limits that we would be defining, it will perform autonomously on the task, again with
That's
with
right.
specific limits. And again, we can actually talk about those limits and everything in a moment. But
Hmm.
overall, I think when I see AI in context of contract management, I think the future is that we would have more and more autonomous agents. Yeah.
So, autonomous agents, it's very legal language. And when you are, especially contracts, is definitely very related to the legal terms and conditions, not just the opportunity that we are trying to sell and the products and whatnot. So, this is going to be very unstructured. I mean, they do have a lot of context, but it is still an unstructured legal language. So, how does agentic AI handle these kind of complex contractual scenarios?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a great question. Okay, Madhuri. So again, let us start from the basics. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
when we say agent, right, the core part of any agent would be an LLM engine. Okay,
Correct.
now that LLM engine could be anything. It could be a OpenAI model. It could be a model from Facebook as Llama, or it could be
Mm-hmm.
other models like DeepSeek or anything, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now that LLM already uses natural language processing, right? So it can actually interpret and contextualize the unstructured legal text, right? So right now, as you would have already experienced, right? If you go to Chat GPT, you are generally able to, or it is generally able to understand what you are saying, even if your
Correct.
spelling is incorrect, or even if your
Mm-hmm.
grammatically the sentence is not correct. It is still
Mm-hmm.
able to, most of the times will be able to understand that what you're trying to say, and it will give you a response, right?
Correct.
So that power of having that uh, NLP plus the overall context actually makes
Mm-hmm.
it very, very powerful, right?
Mm.
And this ability then gives the power to agent to actually autonomously identifying the deviations, suggest the improvements, and then proactively manage the negotiations, right? So again, I don't think so that unstructured data would be a very big problem. I think the bigger problem is not having a data. Yeah.
Yeah. So, how can AI-driven agents enhance your risk assessment and contract analytics? So, again, going into the core concept of contract management, that is a very big topic, and structure, because everyone will be very scared about, like, okay, what happens if my terms and conditions are not written through properly, because
Yep.
the redlining and customers can come back and do a lot of negotiations. So, how does these agents help through with that?
Yeah. So I think a very, very valid concern there, Madhuri. I would start with the point that that AI driven agents, when they come in, right, they will be proactive in nature. Okay, so right now the AI that we are dealing with, we would generally be calling the AI. Okay, so we are
Mm-hmm.
actually invoking an AI for a specific thing, right? But
Mm.
when we go into the agentic AI, they will mostly be proactive. They can actually scan contracts in real time. They can continuously update the risk profiles. They'll be able to predict the potential compliance issues, and then also proactively suggest the amendments. Okay,
Mm.
they will be that smart, right? And again, right now also a human could do it, but then again, it is not humanly possible to actually go in and read
Every
almost
contract.
every day, every hour of the day to the contracts, right? which
Mm.
which the AI agents would be able to do, right? So by all of this, I think this will move the risk management
Mm-hmm.
from the current reactive world to more like predictive and proactive world. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Makes total sense. So now that we are understanding the advantages of having agentic AI and making sure that it can read through this unstructured data, give more benefits, improve the productivity of the end user, it doesn't go through easily challenges.
yeah.
What are the biggest challenges that we think when we are thinking about agentic AI and especially within contract management?
Yeah. I think very relevant question. Actually, it has been a question that many of the companies or many of the legal folks have been asking, right? Or and again, this also dives into the point that everybody wants to implement AI, but they want to understand that what are
Yes.
the biggest challenges that they would face, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
think from my view, I think one of the biggest challenge that we are seeing in the field, or that is generally, is the availability of the accurate training data. Okay,
Mm.
so I think for anything AI, right, you need first of all data that should be sanitized, that should be accurate, right?
Mm-hmm.
uh, unless and until you have the data store, you will not be able to train the AI on your specific use cases. Yes, you could have a generic
Correct.
AI, but I
Mm.
don't think so that would be very useful to you, right?
Mm.
The other thing is, again, when you have this data, uh, there is always a bias in the data. Okay, so that is where another challenge or unanswered question is that how would you avoid the bias in the data, right?
Right.
One question that I always get from most of the customers is about the data security and compliance, right?
Mm.
So basically, when they are dealing with this, when you talk about that they have to share their data, I think one of the biggest exercise that we do is that how to make sure that the data security and compliance is always maintained.
Mm.
That is another thing, right? And then while these are all still, I would say, related to mostly data, but then I think the other points that are still unanswered and need some more thinking is how would you define what are the limits that the AI can go. Okay,
Mm.
now, when AI becomes more and more autonomous, it will be very essential for us to define that, okay, this is what I want the AI to do, and this is what I don't want AI to do. Right? That's
Correct.
one. Right? And then the other thing is, how would you define the escalation path? Right? So,
Mm.
for example, if AI has taken a decision, right? And suppose if the AI, and suppose if you define a limit, right? How would you define that escalation path that the AI can go up to this point, and then now it has to go to the human in the loop to actually
Mm.
take the work further, right? All those processes, I think, those are the challenges. Those are the unanswered questions, I would say so.
Mm. And I think it touches back to the point, right? Like you're taking the advantage of AI, but
Mhm.
you're giving the constraints within which AI can play around, and not saying that, oh, you can do whatever you want and take away human intervention altogether and just complete the entire end-to-end workflow. But you're literally giving the constraints. What are the steps? What are the branches of information that it can go through, and the escalation path which you just mentioned. So
Yeah.
what it can and cannot do, again going back to that context of where it can play, is really needed. And that is where the humans have to be really really careful on how you are defining that agent.
Absolutely, Madhuri. And I think this actually touches another point that
Uh-huh.
people have been thinking about, that what will happen to the work that the humans do
Mm,
after the advent or after the autonomous agents come in, right?
mhm,
And that is where we have been seeing that even if as in the main purpose of the agents would be not to replace humans but actually make humans more productive,
mm,
so it will take care of all the repetitive tasks or anything that is considered as non-productive work, right? And then I think the humans would be able to focus more on on the more important work, as I would put it. Yeah.
mm. Great. So can you, as we have, I know you in the slides that you shared about some use cases where the agentic AI, traditional Gen AI and agentic
Mhm.
AI, all those use cases, right?
Yeah.
But touch basing more on AI driven contract management. Can you share more examples or more use cases where companies can use it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So from my experiences, okay, again, I am aware of companies in the technology, financial services, procurement.
Mm-hmm.
They have, successfully implemented AI driven CLM solutions, right?
Oh, great.
One of the most implemented use case, again, I have already spoken about it, is the automating the third party paper processing.
Mm,
So basically, you would have a third-party paper, and again, this is one of the big challenges in the legal world, wherein
mm-hmm.
there are people who, as in there are actually enterprises who mostly get third-party papers. Okay, it's
Okay.
not their own paper, right? Now
Mm-hmm.
the risk with those type of contracts is very high because the
Mm-hmm.
language is unknown. They have not drafted it. They will need to, as in the legal folks, needs to go through entire document just to understand that it actually complies with their company policies and it is not becoming too risky for them to actually adapt to it, right? So I think the third party paper processing has been widely used or implemented as an AI solution, right?
Mm-hmm.
Other use cases include I've also seen customers are also adapting to the risk scoring, right?
Mm-hmm.
So based on the language that is extracted, even the current AI is able to do, again, the rules and everything needs to be defined by the business,
Yes.
but then the AI is able to give you a risk score that okay, this is a risky contract, this is not a
Mm-hmm.
risky language, and all those things, right?
Mm.
And again, I have seen that by doing this or implementing these use cases, they have actually significantly reduced the contract turnaround time and improved the compliance for the overall contract management as such. Yeah.
Great. So now that we have seen the productivity gains and the advantages, there is a flip side of it also, right? Like the cost. How much of a cost are we actually saving with AI powered contract management?
Oh, okay. That's a great question. I don't think so that anybody would be able to answer black and white for that, Madhuri, because
Correct.
again, those are like very new systems, right? Those
Mm,
are being implemented, right? Again, I would put it like it can actually save time and effort. However, that depends on how you want to implement the AI solution, right?
mm.
And to what extent you want to rely on AI, right?
Okay,
So that
makes
is
sense.
another factor here. But I think it's still a little too early for us. Maybe once we have some time is gone, we have has
Mm-hmm.
some solutions. That is where we'll be able to measure it. What was the
Mm-hmm.
actual saving, right? And for sure, we know it can save manual effort in many areas, such as drafting, monitoring,
Yeah.
reviewing, third-party
Mm-hmm.
paper processing. It
Mm-hmm.
actually saves a lot of time, but there is no, I would say, a measure or a number right now that is available for us to actually use it.
So, Neeraj, would you say that like any other product development, product implementation, or a project integration, right? Like getting AI into your current business flows, it will be like your upfront implementation cost, either from business rules perspective or from the technology perspective. There will be an upfront cost associated, but the benefits of it, the ROI will be something that you can actually reap on it maybe in a year or two itself.
Yeah, so I would add, yeah. So first of all, what you're saying is correct, Madhuri. There will be an upfront cost, but I would add to it that there will be also a recurring ongoing cost, right?
Okay.
Because
Uh-huh.
generally, what is going to happen is that for having this, models or the agents created, you would
Mm,
always need an LLM, right?
correct.
Now the question would come that where would it be your LLM? Would it be your using an open source LLM? If
Mhm.
yes, where would you host it and all those things? If
Yes.
it is not your own LLM, then you would be using a proprietary LLM, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which again costs money.
Mm.
So there'll be an additional recurring cost as well when you are calling an AI, right?
Mm. Makes sense. So those are all the from a business perspective, they have
Yep,
to think through on, okay, when we are getting into AI, these are the additional things that they have to consider from a implementation perspective.
absolutely. Yes, yeah.
And now that we are touched on agentic AI, it's all on the technology and business. The another facet to all this conversation is ethical and legal considerations, and especially when we are talking about contracts, we have to think through from these considerations as well.
Yep.
So when we are getting into this, legal and regulatory concerns. What kind of legal and regulatory concerns AI agents we should be considering for when we are enabling contract management?
Oh wow, yeah. Uh, so, Madhuri, I see one of the big concerns, okay, and again, one of the, I would say, question to be answered, right?
Mm-hmm.
And again, I have been thinking about it a lot, is the liability of the AI made decisions, right? That who will be
That's right.
liable for the decisions that the AI makes, right?
Mm-hmm.
As you know, systems become more and more autonomous, right? Other concern that we have always seen, and again, I just spoke about it, is about the privacy
Privacy.
compliance, right?
Yes.
Because will need to share the data, they will need to use the data to actually train the models, right? So then they would always have a concern of what is being done with their data, what is the use of their data, right? That's another
Yeah.
thing, right? uh, if you ask me personally, again, I also have other concerns in the terms of the bias in the data, right? So if
Correct.
the data has been created in a certain way, or it has certain properties, the models would actually be more flipping towards that that data.
Mm.
It would not be standard, like, right? And again, it is not, again, coming back to any intelligent system, right? We all have biases. Okay, as a human also, we always, when we are always coming with a bias, right?
Mm.
It's just that we learn to suppress those biases when we are talking to each other or when we are doing
Mm-hmm.
anything, right? And that
Mm.
is how we make maybe more accurate decisions, I would say, right? But then with AI trained on a data which has biases, the AI system will be a biased system, right? So that is what we have to think about more about it,
Mm.
right? And again, one other thing that would become very, very important in highly regulated industries, like healthcare or finance and
Mm.
everything,
Yes.
is that how AI reaches a decision.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so right now AI is a black box. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
basically you give it an input, it will give you an output, right?
That's right.
But for regulatory industries, it will become very important on the process of how did the AI take this decision, right?
Mm.
Which is again very difficult to understand, that okay, why did, maybe when you ask a question to ChatGPT, why did ChatGPT give you that answer, right? So that is
Yeah.
that is another concern or another unanswered question that we all have to think about, I would say.
Yeah. So going into the same question, expanding on it. Couple of years back, we had the European Union coming up with like, hey, GDPR concerns, and now we have other concerns too, like CCPA, and
Yep.
there are a lot of regulatory and legal ethical concerns that was brought in, and business had to shift, and it
Yep.
literally how we are protecting the contact data, how we are protecting the contact sensitive data, and so on. Every business had to literally, there was a deadline, and everyone had to change it because there were heavy fines associated.
Yep.
But AI, because it's still a playground as such, there could be an event or advent where AI driven models or AI driven data, because it is training on so much of it, it is already infringing probably those GDPR and CCPA concerns. So how do you think AI agents is actually securing that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's a good point to discuss, Madhuri. Since again, it's not just the regulatory framework, right?
True.
The other points to add to the same question that you're asking is, again, how would a company with a specific policies, how would they use the generic models, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when you go into the open world, you would find many generic models, but they are trained on the all of the available data, right? So they
Correct.
are not very
Public level.
specific. Yeah, public data,
Yes.
right? Publicly
Mm-hmm.
available data, right? So you would see that again, those are not very good for very specific purposes, like maybe reviewing contract for GDPR or CCPA, right?
Mm.
And similarly, those models will not be even good for reviewing your contracts based on your company policies, right? Now
Correct.
your HR could have a policy, or your company could have some other policies which always needs to be taken care of while
Mm-hmm.
they are reviewing the contracts, right? they will
Mm-hmm.
they will the only solution to all both of this problem is having or embedding directly the data into the AI training, right?
Mm.
So I think that is where the framework would come in handy, where we are able to put in the regulatory data, the company policy data, or maybe it could be a jurisdictional data as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it could also happen that, and again, it could not. It actually happens. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
basically, every jurisdiction would have their own law
Mm-hmm.
or set of rules of doing business, right?
You're
Then
right.
you will need to gather all that data, and we will need to come up with a framework to actually train the AI models onto it, right?
Mm.
And again, that framework would need to be very, very robust, because everybody, all of the companies, right,
Mm-hmm.
would need to use that framework to actually train their own models as such, right?
Mm.
So that is very important, right? So again, this is like one of the things that we need AI trained based on the data that we need to have in, for example, a
Mm-hmm.
regulatory data, company policy data, or a jurisdictional laws or anything like that,
Mm-hmm.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
The other point that I can think of when you go into this, more of the regulated industries, right, is that
Mm-hmm.
we will need to set some clear boundaries, right, of
Mm.
what the AI can do and what the AI should not do, right?
Okay.
That's like second point, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the third point that I can think of is that, again, when it is regulatory sensitive, I think we will always need to have a human oversight. At least, for some years to come, we'll always
Mm-hmm.
need to have a human oversight to see that what the AI is
Mm-hmm.
doing, it's actually approved by a human. Yeah.
Mm. So this goes into a different topic right now, related to frameworks, regulatory guidelines, and whatnot. As with technology, we there is always a chance of bad players coming into the picture where the data can get hacked. And now that we are rely if we are going to rely more on agents and AI to train on the data, company policies, and whatnot, how do you think that we should be companies should be thinking about what kind of safeguards they should think to say that, okay, this data should not be hacked, and not making these non-compliance or not get publicly posted because somebody hacked the system?
Yeah. I would put again, no. I have seen as in the issues with the data itself, right?
Yes.
Again, those are like very grave issues as such, right? But then I would actually go a step further, Madhuri, that we are dealing with even a bigger problem now, right? It is
Okay.
not just data. Yes, data compliance is one big issue. That
Mm-hmm.
how do we make sure that the data is safe, right? But I
Yeah,
think the
right.
bigger problem that we are dealing with here is that now, very soon, the AI will take decisions in the business,
Ah,
right?
yes.
How do we make sure that that the AI is actually taking decisions which are in favor of our business, right?
Mm.
So I think that is where we will need to come up with, again, some processes, some rules. We'll need to define some guardrails, right? We will need to be very clear on what decisions the AI can take and should not take, should never
Mm.
take, actually. Yeah, kind of things. And then also defining, strict escalation protocols, as I just described.
Mm-hmm.
That, when the AI stops, what should happen, right?
Yeah.
So the workflow should be defined. The
Mm-hmm.
other thing is, again, we should always be doing the audits of the AI decisions, right? So
Mm.
there should be a mechanism through which you can go in, you can see that, okay, it took this decision, what was the rationale behind it, right? And whether it was a right decision or a wrong decision, right? I think that is very important. And if you find anything problem, then I think you'll need to again retrain it and again go back to the drawing board and everything, right? And I think one of the most essential, I would say, to start with and to actually overcome all of this is we should start with human in the loop, okay?
Mm,
Supervision. So we should not let the AI to be like completely free, and then we should start with human in the loop kind of a framework, I would say.
mm. So with we are coming to the end of our conversation, but with these advancements, where do you see AI is shaping your contract management, the whole landscape in the next 3 to 5 years?
Oh, wow. Yep. So while no one can truly predict the future, Madhuri, right? But the current trends, again, we could only think about the future based on the
Mm-hmm.
current trends, right? And current trends suggest that AI is rapidly evolving toward greater autonomy. Okay,
Yeah.
taking on tasks like drafting and negotiating contracts, and it will be like with minimal human interventions. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and then it will also be performing real-time compliance checks, right? And then basically transitioning the CLM from reactive to a more proactive system, I would say.
Mm. So, how should companies prepare for an AI-driven contract management future?
Oh wow, that's a $1 million question actually, Madhuri. Uh, just thinking through what we have discussed, right? I think the answer already lies somewhere there, but let me
Mm-hmm.
just try to gather my thoughts around it, right? So first of all, with AI, with future of AI, the data becomes of paramount importance. Okay, so I think the first thing is that companies should start standardizing their contracts data, right? They should be able to build some clear negotiation guidelines, right? That okay, how do we do negotiation so that we can then give that context to the AI, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then maybe as I said, right, we'll need to define some frameworks, right? So basically, we'll need to invest in the AI and the data governance framework, which should take care of all the concerns that we have spoken about, right? And then we should not start very big. We should gradually integrate AI into the
Mm-hmm.
existing processes, right? So that we
Mm-hmm.
can build some trust, capability, and we can learn from it, I would say.
Right. And as we are thinking from company's perspective, we should also be thinking about human like the folks who are actually going to enable this technology, build these rules, and go from there. What kind of resource? How can they upskill themselves?
Okay, again, a great question. This is the first and the good part here is that again, most of this, resources that maybe I am using or anybody who wants to
Mm-hmm.
learn is using are freely available on the internet, right? So you should be
Right.
just interested, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, on the resources, I think there have been some things which have made a very big impact on my learning AI, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think I started, or I think I actually read a book named AI Superpowers. It's
Oh,
by
great.
Kai Fu Lee. It
Mm-hmm.
actually gave me a good insight, and that is what made me interested because it actually talks about how AI is going to change the world order. Okay,
Okay.
I think that's a good book if anybody is interested, right? The other thing is again we all have been using, right? So for example, the tools like ChatGPT or if you're also using Perplexity or anything like that,
Mm-hmm.
right? Those are great tools to learn AI to understand how the AI works, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're specifically interested in building the agents, right? I have been personally using tools like N8N or Cursor. If you're a coder,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I would
Mm-hmm.
I would generally advise those tools, right? One
Mm-hmm.
other thing that I have found to be very very useful are the research papers. Okay, so the research paper that I was just referring to
Anthropic.
from
Yeah.
Anthropic, so
Mm-hmm.
they actually give us a window to the future of what is going to come.
Ah,
Because research
okay,
papers are
great.
published, and then
Mm-hmm.
people will start working onto it, and then we will be able to see some outcome of it, right? So
Mm-hmm.
generally, research papers from Anthropic, or generally the papers which are published in Arxiv, right? You can actually
Mm-hmm.
go and you can search for AI papers and you'll be able to see, right? So I think those are the resources I would suggest if anybody wants to learn.
Yeah. And again, AI, it's advancing, it's everything, but humans have to take the extra step, go to the extra mile to learn about it. It is a new technology that is being coming, and it is going to improve your productivity, take away those mundane tasks. But making sure that it is actually connecting back to your business so that the business workflows and processes are implemented in the right manner and the impacts are delivered in a scalable manner. We have to know how they should be implemented or leveraged in the right way. And thanks for all these resources, Neeraj, and sharing your thoughts and diving deep into agentic AI and contract management. And for my community, if you all enjoyed the episode, don't forget to subscribe to Cloudly Conversations, and we will bring in more interesting and thought-driven topics like these. See you next time. Thank you.
Thank you, Madhuri, for having me. Thank you very much. Bye
Thank
bye.
you.